So Wednesday Fenway Rundown, May 21st. I'm Chris Cotillo here with Sean McAdam. And folks, this is going to most likely, barring some crazy emergency, and that would require Roman Anthony or Marcelo Meyer being called up, be our only Fenway rundown of the week. I have some time off later in the week. Sean will be traveling to Milwaukee. I'll be going. There's a lot going on. A lot of games at Fenway, no off days. So we are going to try to get everything Red Sox related knocked out in this one and be back early in the next week. As we sit here, it is a crochet day. The Red Sox can sweep the Mets tonight at Fenway. Two, I think, Sean, of the better games that they've played all year. A 3-1 win, a 2-0 win. There's a lot to get to, from Walker Buehler to graduation gate to Kristian Campbell at first base. But we'll start with, I know we've been here before, but after a really bad stretch of losing 11 out of 17, including 2 of 3 to the Braves over the weekend, the Red Sox seem to have a little bit momentum once again.
Yeah, beating a good team. Let's not forget that the Mets came into this series tied for the best record in the National League. They're a quality opponent. They're a playoff team. And the Red Sox have gotten 2 good pitching performances the last 2 nights in low scoring, kind of playoff-like atmosphere games between 2 teams with aspirations for October. The strange part, I guess, for the Red Sox is that they've been bullpen games, not by design on either night. Hunter Dobbins lifted after 4 2/3 on Monday, and the bullpen has to go the rest of the way and does. And then Buehler's ejection, which we'll get to on Tuesday night, forced the Red Sox to contribute 6 2/3 innings, far more than what was expected, even for Buehler coming off the IL and making his first start in 3.5 weeks. He clearly had more to go than that, but Mike Estherbrook had other ideas, and so it fell on the Red Sox bullpen for the second straight night to carry the day, and they did. There's been superb relief in those 2 nights, and that comes on the heels of a road trip in which the bullpen was responsible, at least partly, for 3 walk-off late-inning wins for the other side, 1 in Kansas City and 2 in Detroit on back-to-back nights. But the bullpen seems to have found another gear here the last 2 nights, which is why it is perfect timing to have Garrett Crochet on the mound Wednesday. They need length out of him. This would be the perfect night for Crochet to be able to give them 7, because by my count, there are at least 4 guys who pitched back-to-back nights the last 2. That would be Slayton, Chapman, Weissert, and Bernardino, all of whom have
Well,
gone back.
Wilson too, right? So 5.
And Wilson, yeah, maybe there's 5, where you would expect that they are all unavailable, except for maybe an emergency or 1 batter. I mean, it is pretty much Liam Hendricks and maybe somebody like Sean Newcomb in shorter, high leverage spots, which you wouldn't expect, but they have a lot of guys I expect to be down tonight, which is why they need length from Crochet. This is why you have a number 1 guy to kind of carry the load when the bullpen has been overused for 2 nights.
Yeah, and still the potential for pregame roster moves. Not a lot of options on the 40-man roster you can pull up. Birdie, after going down yesterday, can't be brought up unless there's an injury. Zach Kelly pitched yesterday and has been dealing with some control stuff. Luis Guerrero, I guess, might be the guy. But not a lot in the way of options tonight. A big start for Crochet. And yeah, look, I mean, this has been a pretty good 2 days. The bullpen has been good, but I think, to me, and we'll get to all the other different things, you look back at the weekend and you look back at, obviously, the Buehler thing, complete anomaly and a completely different scenario, but the starting pitching outside of Crochet continues to be the biggest flashing red light for me. I've been saying this for a month. You know that because you've heard it on the other side of this pod. With Bayo being, how he was on Sunday and really uneven in previous starts, the Giolito inconsistency, Houck being what he has been. Dobbins is not going 6 or 7. He's not going deep into games. He's been good, but kind of hitting the wall a little bit. And I need to see a couple more from Buehler before I'm sold. Like, my column the other day was they need a number 2 guy to emerge. Hell, they need a number 2, 3, and 4 guy to emerge. And this next series against Baltimore is going to be a big opportunity for that.
Yeah, I have I think a decent amount of confidence that Crochet is going to, rather that Buehler is going to be able to contribute here. I like the way he was trending before he got hurt. Uh, Other than the fact that he plunked a couple of guys, the pitch to Lindor didn't seem to be particularly errant and was more about the Met shortstop leaning into it. So that doesn't signal any big command issues for me or wildness on Bueller's part. You know, his velocity was up last night where he was 96, almost 97 at times. That's encouraging. So the fact that he's healthy and trending in the right direction is encouraging. But you're right, the rotation has fallen off a cliff at times after Crochet, and you can't have that. You're not going to make up ground. You're not going to win series when you're not getting, 5+ from the majority of guys in your rotation. And whether it be Bayo because of wildness, or Hauk because he's been lit up in the second and third innings too often, or Dobbins not having the experience, they're not getting a big load carried innings wise from the rest of the rotation once you get past Crochet. So that's got to get figured out. It's great to have the bullpen step up the way it has the last two nights, but that is not a winning strategy to be into your bullpen in the early and mid innings every night. That wears guys down in the short and long term. It brings up availability questions in the short term, and it's not the way to win games. You've got to have consistent starting pitching, and they haven't gotten enough of that so far, 50 games in.
We spent, and everybody in Red Sox world spent too much time with these. Ooh, they have six starters for five spots. How are they going to get all these good pitchers in? Well, at this point, if you're building a rotation for, let's say, June 15th on, when you're at full strength, based on merit and what we've seen from these guys so far, I'd say Crochet is the obvious one. Behind him, Buehler deserves a spot. And Dobbins and Fitz deserve spots because of what they've given you as rookies coming out more than Hauk, more than Bayo, more than Giolito. Obviously, Crawford has been hurt. Quinn Priester got traded. So the group got kind of, thrown into chaos pretty fast. And right now, again, I think it's Crochet, maybe Buehler, and then the field. And I think that at a certain point, if you're a team intent on contending, you're going to have to make tough decisions there. Obviously, they kind of did with how putting him on the IL with whatever that is. But like if Dobbins and Fitz are really out pitching Bayo and Giolito at a certain point, you got to go with those guys. We're not there yet. That's getting ahead on May 21st. But from what you've
Well,
seen, like there's just like more guys have taken a huge step back than a step forward this year for them.
yeah, I would say that Bayo may be pitching for his spot in the rotation Friday night against Baltimore. There has not been enough from him. He was all over the place in the strike zone on Sunday. He's not been efficient. He's not showed good command. He's a guy that has to be in the zone because he's not getting a lot of swing and miss. You want weak contact. You're not getting that. He's not getting ahead. When he gets ahead, he's not putting guys away. There's really, despite what the numbers look like, which look somewhat respectable, Bayo has pitched far worse than the numbers suggest. And I think there's some growing frustration internally with him that if this next one is not better, and maybe he gets two more, but I would not rule out an option to Worcester to have him work on things because they can't keep running him out and getting the kind of starts like they did on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, Fitz is still a little ways away. He's going to start a rehab assignment, I think tomorrow or maybe, early next week. There's some confusion on that. I think if he's ready and one of these guys is struggling, Giolito going to the bullpen can be another option if he gets lit up a couple more times. I mean, they are at a point now where, you saw them kind of cut bait with Kluber a couple years ago when it was disastrous. When you have other options, it's almost time to, start worrying, and I think we're there. Last night, the Walker Buehler ejection. I went into the back, I think, to get a water, and did not see it, and all of a sudden came back and was like, "What the hell's going on here?" Um, you've seen a lot of baseball, Sean. I find a way to make a crack like that every podcast. That was
I've
not even
noticed.
intent. That was not even intentional, but you have more than me. Um, On the fair hook to quick hook scale, where would you rank Mike Estabrook in his performance last night?
Yeah, I thought he was needlessly confrontational. Um, he clearly had missed the pitch, which may have been tough to evaluate given that there was a stolen base attempt and Narvaez was getting out of his crouch, but it was pretty obvious that that pitch was over the heart of the plate. To me, a veteran guy like Buehler, who's been around, had some success. To me, you give him a little bit more rope. You listen to him bark a little bit about that being right over the middle of the plate, as Buehler was saying repeatedly from the mound, and then he gets a warning. Okay, you had your say. That's it. And instead, Estabrook took the mask off, which is always a telltale sign of an umpire looking to get into it with somebody, started going out to the mound. And, that's not the job of the umpire. The job of the umpire is to diffuse an issue, not to escalate it or heighten it. And I thought he did the latter. I'm not saying Buehler was innocent of all charges. He himself said he's got to know better in that situation than to not cross the line and give the umpire any reason to run him at a
Mhm.
time when the team couldn't afford to lose him. So, they're both, I think, guilty of some wrongdoing here. But ultimately, you look for the umpire to quell some of this stuff rather to stoke it. And I thought, as I said, he was needlessly provocative instead of calming things down, he escalated things.
Yeah, Walker Buehler was totally. This is on me. I'm not going to comment what the umpire can say. He was under the false pretense that the umpires can't be interviewed. A pool reporter got Laz Diaz, and then Walker Buehler saw Laz Diaz's response to the incident, speaking on behalf of Mike Estabrook, and at 1:30 responded to my tweet with his true thoughts last night and said, "Who cut the distance between me and the mound? Like who got closer?" And it was Estabrook. Which I think is telling that, who knows if he's going to he could be the first player ever fined for tweeting at me, which would be historic, honestly. But I think it was funny. He was saying,
I
no, I'm going to
sure hope
say,
that doesn't tamp down your Twitter activity.
yeah. So, um, I thought that was funny that he basically was saying, I'm not going to blame the umpire because they can't get interviewed. Saw that Laz Diaz was interviewed and said, oh, the hell with this. I'm going back.
Gloves are off.
Yeah, and I mean he's right. Estabrook did move toward him and keep coming toward him, keep coming toward him, and I think in that situation, as Alex Cora contended, let the manager go out, let the manager argue, maybe throw him out, and go from there. But if it was in a loss, it would be much more costly. I think it was entertaining. There were some fireworks and a good win for the Red Sox. One of those more memorable nights, even in a 2-0 game. We will get to the manager now. And we need to when you work in Boston and when you host a podcast and you listen to what other commentators and everybody else has to say, we should have a sponsored segment, Sean, for the asinine storyline of the week. And this week it's graduation gate. Okay? I, as people know, am an adjunct at BC once a week. I did not attend graduation. I knew it was going on. Cora said on Sunday he was going over there. I knew the ceremony was at 10 a.m. Um, got some internal emails over it. Didn't think much of it. Did not think it would be, the biggest storyline for 2 days running in Boston media. But the Celtics are out. People can only bitch about Don Sweeney so much, and Drake May's 4 picks and OTAs didn't rise to the level. So here we are with Graduation Gate 2025. I think it's an insane storyline. I think anything people are taking away from, the Red Sox looking good under Ramon Vasquez for 2 days is ridiculous. I think there are conversations to be had about the culture, the team, and all that. Alex Cora wise down the line, not 7 weeks into a 3-year deal. And I don't fault him one iota for missing the day to celebrate Camilla's graduation. There was a party. They had a ton of family members in from Puerto Rico. She asked him, can you take the whole day? And he said yes. This had been planned for weeks, if not months, if not years. It's standard practice in baseball. Just because she chose to go to Boston College instead of Michigan or Illinois or whatever is the reason it was local. And I think just a complete waste of breath by everybody that we have to talk about this.
Yeah, an overreaction by some. Um, I think that the only people, we should look to the fact that at some point, Craig Breslow and or Sam Kennedy or some combination thereof approved of Alex Cora's request to have the day off for precisely the reason he cited yesterday, that his daughter wanted him for the whole day to enjoy the family and not be looking at his watch at 2 o'clock saying, I got to leave in a half hour for the ballpark. Um, they were okay with it. It happens for managers to attend the weddings of their children, to attend the births of children, to attend graduations.
To pick
It's
up
an
their 40-year-old kids at the airport even 10 years ago.
That's true. Although, unfortunately for the Red Sox, Bobby Valentine arrived in time to manage that game in Oakland. That was a bizarre event. But the Red Sox are fine with it. And in my mind, if they are, everybody else should be. If they didn't want to give him the full day, they would have said, well, I mean, there's plenty of time with the 10 or 11 o'clock ceremony to be there at the ballpark by game time or late afternoon. They were okay with giving him the full day. It's not like Alex Cora has done this twice a year since he's been here in 2018. It was an important day for his family. He was dedicated to his daughter and wanted to spend the day with her. What are we doing? Are we really trying that hard to find content and something to bitch about? It appears yes.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think again. I think about the logistics of everything. This is only a story because they had a home night game on a Monday and the graduation was local and on that Monday, right? So like think about if they played Sunday at 1:35 and the graduation was on Sunday. Well, there's a conflict, so no issue there. If they were on the road and she was graduating from BC, he would have flown home. He would have done the same thing. And oh, well, he had to leave town to go back to Boston. Again, if she went to Miami where she's going for grad school, or if she went to, Indiana or UCLA or somewhere else, he would
Why
go.
are you leaving a certain school out of this list of hypotheticals?
I just, what,
Maybe
Providence?
one that is visible on your shirt right now?
Yeah. Well, I got to get the latest Jordan Hudson news before claiming that again. Um, I've lost my train of thought. Thanks. I mean,
Oh,
if he had to
sorry.
travel,
I know
yeah,
you never interrupt. I'll try
that's true.
never to do it again.
If he had to travel, this would not be a story at all. It shouldn't be a story at all. And the other last point I'll make of it is I can't stop laughing at the Ramon Vasquez beautiful bullpen management storyline over the last couple nights. Do we not think that 90% of that stuff is preordained, or that they had a plan heading into Monday, or that they had Alex Cora managing from the office on Tuesday? That's no disrespect, no knock to Ramon Vasquez, but these things are. In this situation, we're going to Justin Wilson. In this situation, we're going to Bernardino. In this situation, it's Slayton. And that would be
There was
if
nothing
Ramon Vasquez
unusual
was the
about the
manager,
bull.
or you or I would be the manager. That was going to happen.
Yeah, there was nothing unusual about bullpen usage in either of the other two nights. Unusual only because last night they needed 20 outs after Buehler's ejection in the third, and no team goes into a game planning on needing 6 2/3 from their relievers. But when it happens, you have to work through it. And you're right, there's no question, and this is common knowledge, that managers who get run during games are often sending a clubhouse kid, sending some sort of message. There is communication. Let's not be naive. And again, like you, I'm not taking anything away from Ramon Vasquez. He obviously enjoyed the opportunity Monday to get his first win. His son was in town to see it. He then half jokingly retired from managerial duty after the game, only to be thrust back into the job 24 hours later. This is manufacturing a controversy when there is none.
Yep.
And Mike Felger has had a habit of criticizing athletes, whether it be players or coaches, for missing any games due to personal issues. whether it's the birth of a child or a graduation or whatever it is. This seems to be, for reasons I don't know and frankly don't care about, a sore spot with him to the point where he makes an issue out of it every time. He's very good at pushing people's buttons and eliciting reaction and starting controversy. And to a certain degree, he's succeeded here in that the manager was, without naming him, referring to his criticism the other day. I don't know why it has become a pet cause of his and why it's constantly brought up when anybody misses time. Who appointed him as the arbiter of what's right and what to do for your family? It's frankly, if the teams and the employers are okay with the absence, then everybody else should too.
Yep, and they were in this case, and so I think case closed. And Cora's other two kids are 5 or 6, so we won't have to have this conversation until they graduate high school in 12 years.
Presumably not.
Let's get to Kristian Campbell working out at first base because we recorded on Friday. When we got to the ballpark, there he was down the line, in the words of the great Sergio Dip, having the time of his life. Kristian Campbell working out at first base, presumably because Rafael Devers will not. That storyline has died, though we're going to dig back into it in a second. Kristian Campbell working out on a daily basis, taking grounders, working around the bag with Ramon Vasquez, with Jose Flores, with Alex Cora. This is a crash course in the middle of a season for a versatile player who has never played the position in the past. This is the greatest writing on the wall. They're going to play him at first, and they're going to call up Marcelo Meyer to play second, and maybe eventually short if they cut bait with Story or decrease his role. The writing is on the wall, and it just seems to me an absolute matter of time. No question, this is where they're going. You reported over the weekend some stuff about trade talks for first baseman. I think we've both heard at this point the Red Sox are definitely not counting on Devers to do it. And so it seems like Campbell at first, Meyer at second is the solution. Just take us through what you've heard on that.
Yeah, that the Red Sox did initially canvass teams to see if there might be a trade that could be made to bring in a more established first baseman. At the time, I had not heard any specific names. Subsequent to writing that, I did hear that at least one team had contacted the Washington Nationals of late to inquire about the potential availability of Nathaniel Lowe. I don't know for a fact that that was the Red Sox, but it seems likely it was. There are not a lot of other teams in the market in mid-May for first baseman other than the Red Sox, so I'm going to assume that was one of the calls they made. Whoever that team was, they were told by the Nationals, not interested, want Lowe around for his veteran leadership, not ready to wave the white flag. And those were one of the two responses that they were getting in teams they did call. As is kind of consistent with what we know, a lot of teams do not want to make trades in May because they fear that it sends the wrong signal to the fan base about giving up on the rest of the year. So it's too early to usually get a deal done. And those that were willing to at least consider offers for whatever first baseman they might have were asking such a prohibitive price that it was, as one evaluator told me, twice what might be asked of that same player at the trade deadline. So if you're going to get, a rental early, some 2.5 months before the trade deadline, you're going to pay a premium. And at some point, that doesn't make sense for the Red Sox. So they've turned to internal options. I think they have read the tea leaves well enough that it does not appear that Rafael Devers is going to soften his stance here. He is not going to come around and say, okay, having thought about it, I'll give it a shot. I don't think that's happening. And so they've identified Kristian Campbell as an option, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, he's athletic, obviously. I still think that they need to stop playing him in the outfield. And once this happens, they probably will. We talked about the need to shoehorn David Hamilton into the lineup. I don't see it. I don't see, the obviously the defensive difference between Rafaela and Campbell out there is stark. Even last night when he had a pretty good game out there, I think at this point he's going to just play first a lot and Meyer plays second. Is it perfect? No, but it does solve the problem of where does Meyer play? One down, one to go with Anthony, right? When that eventually happens. Um, is it perfect long-term development? No, because they want Campbell to be their long-term second baseman. They want Meyer to be their long-term shortstop. But we've seen Xander Bogaerts come up as a third baseman. We saw Trevor Story join the organization as a second baseman. We've seen different guys play in different spots. Rafaela played a lot of short last year, and he is who they envision as their center fielder. So these things happen when needs arise. It's always that short-term, long-term balance. But Campbell at first, Meyer at second, I think is going to be the right side of that infield for a lot of the summer. Maybe they reassess at the trade deadline. Maybe more injuries happen. We will see. But putting Campbell out there and saying you're going to start taking reps there was not their first choice. I think the first choice was either a trade addition, like you talked about, or Devers doing it. And like I said, I don't think Devers is going to. At this point, I don't think that's going to change. It'll be interesting. We have not really gotten any answers on what was said during that meeting between Henry and Devers. Maybe he flew out there and Rafi said, "Thank you for coming. I'm still not going to first." And if that was the case, then we are where we are. The Devers thing the last couple weeks is he's hitting like crazy. We've seen that. The performance has been great as a DH. Alex Cora keeps saying he's the best DH in the American League. Have tensions cooled fully? I would say no, just because of Devers' complete reluctance and complete disdain for the idea of talking about anything. The Red Sox forced him to talk to the media after his walk-off home run the other night. After 4 or 5 other games in which he's had a big role, including last night, he has walked out and said, "Nope, I'm not talking." I don't know if he doesn't want the first base questions. At this point, we're probably not even going to ask him. How good did it feel to hit the home run? That was great, wasn't it? Good team win, that type of stuff. He won't even answer those. Nobody cares when we complain about who we get or who we don't get. Fans want us to just say, "Hey, let the guys play, and if they don't want to talk, it's not affecting on-field performance." I get that to an extent, but the Red Sox have some people in there who are not thrilled that Devers continues to kind of blow off those responsibilities. A big one coming off the field with Ken Rosenthal the other night after the walk-off, and it's just not a normal situation right now. I would say it doesn't mean he's not performing. He's performing like crazy. I don't think he's going to first base, but it's just there's something a little off, and it's tough to
Yeah,
pinpoint.
right. However, given that he is scorching hot at the plate with 3 homers in the last 4 games, including a grand slam, including a walk-off
Yep.
last Friday, I think we're at a point now where the Red Sox are afraid to rattle the cage here.
Yep.
He
And I
finally
get it from
started.
their perspective too
Yeah,
now.
yeah, right. I also think that despite his reluctance to discuss a position shift, this is not totally new on Rafaela's on Devers' part.
Right.
There have been instances in each of the last couple of years where he's been a central figure in a win and has been approached by media relations. Hey, media would like to talk to you, and he walks out as though he had not even heard the request. He clearly does not like being interviewed. He does not see his job as a spokesperson for the team, despite the fact that he is both the longest tenured and the highest paid player, at least in terms of the overall value of the contract. I think it's unfortunate that the Red Sox have not made that clearer. And that is not, I promise you, that's not whining on the part of the media. I think there is a responsibility when you are that prominent a player to serve as somewhat of a spokesperson for your team. When he doesn't talk, someone else has to. And but the Red Sox have cultivated this environment where they've excused it and looked the other way. So now that things are going well, and P.S., he's angry at being asked to move twice. He is convinced that he's going to do this as little as possible, and he's keeping score. No, I talked last night, so I don't have to talk again tonight. That seems kind of silly. It is not the biggest request of all. It usually involves less than 5 minutes of questions and answers, but he clearly doesn't want to do it, and the Red Sox aren't motivated to change his mind.
Yeah. Well, I think some people there are, and they
Well,
have.
I'm talking about higher up.
Yeah. I mean, there are
You know,
people who are frustrated with his like reluctance to talk and have been pushing him to do so. I think it stems from Devers was upset about the controversy that arose after his comments about playing first base. He was surprised and upset that it blew into a big thing and was upset with the media for that, which, on the one hand, if you read certain things and certain people criticizing you, it's easy to lump them all together. On the other hand, I think that's just your classic, consequences of my own actions type thing. So at this point, I really don't care. I mean, if he hits a grand slam, if he hits a walk-off home run, if he hits a two-run homer, if he hits a solo home run like last night, if he has 5 home runs, he's going to say, my swing feels great. It is what it is. If it's that much of a chore, just go home. That's fine. We can
yeah,
write
and
around it.
I think, we should also probably draw a distinction between making himself available to the local, mostly, I'll use the phrase print reporters, even though you and I do not technically appear in print, at least not often. But the local beat writers and somebody like Fox, which and those are two different roles. We are covering the team. We are not partners with the team. We do not pay for our access. A entity like Fox or TBS or ESPN is a business partner of Major League Baseball. And the expectation is there will be cooperation from the teams and the star players to enhance the broadcasts that those companies are paying Major League Baseball hundreds of millions of dollars for the right to carry. And when a prominent player blows off Ken Rosenthal and blows off Fox Network on Saturday night, um, there are probably more ramifications than when he snubs MassLive or the Boston Globe or WEEI or anybody else local. That's kind of on a different level, so that will bear watching.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't know what they were, but there was definitely a thing post game that he hit the walk-off home run. Duran was the one talking to Ken. Again, when we do this, it sounds like media complaining. It sounds like, oh, we're taking it personally. Again, I don't think we're getting that much from those interviews. Even when he did talk after he hit the walk-off with us, I'm just saying that there is an expectation, a standard, if not a rule, right? When it comes to the rights holders, like a written in stone rule that you were just talking about, and it's just not being followed the way it normally is here. And I think it speaks to, the guy just wants to hit the ball 110 miles an hour and go home. And do we fully fault him for that? No. Does it make our jobs that much harder? Probably not. But there are people who are very frustrated about it. And that's the reality of where we are, just like it was, earlier this year and later in last year. Moral of the story: he's not going to first base. He's going to be the DH. It is what it is. Hope John Henry had a nice meal on that private jet because that conversation did absolutely nothing. That is the Fenway rundown for today. And this week we'll be back at the
Way
ballpark
to end
tonight.
on an upbeat note.
Yeah, whatever. We will be back next week. A busy week for Sean and I. As I said, Sean will be in Milwaukee. I'll be in Atlanta at the end of the week as the Red Sox continue rolling along.